Welcome back to my channel where I'm chronicling my fibromyalgia journey. The last time we spoke, I talked about how I went to do some research about my condition and then my life changed. Well, the first thing I found was I needed to heal my gut, and that a leaky gut can cause a lot of skin problems, brain fog, a lot of dyspepsia, and some of the bloating and the fatigue that I was feeling. So on one of the visits that I had made earlier to the gastroenterologist, I had asked him if he thinks that this could be a problem. And he said, well, there's not a specific test for leaky gut, but you can try and do what you can with, household remedies. He said to me that he does not have any medication for that. So I went home to try to research about how I can heal my leaky gut, and I found that I could take bone broth. An additional benefit of bone broth is that it should help me sleep. Okay, and it should also improve the pain in the joints. Okay, so I went home, planned it out, got some bones, made sure I found a really great recipe on YouTube, and I made some bone broth, and then I had some. And that night, I slept like a baby. It was the best sleep I've ever had in months. And I was like, yes, we found the Holy Grail. I woke up feeling rested. There was nothing hurting when I stepped down. And so I continued to drink bone broth like 3 times a week for about 3 or 4 months. During the 4 months, I also continued to do research about my condition, but a lot of the joint pain that I had improved, and my sleep improved a lot, and my allodynia was reduced. I started to continue to read more about my condition because now I'm sleeping, so I can have energy to continue to keep reading, right? And then I started to put 2 and 2 together in terms of the causes of fibromyalgia, the things that trigger fibromyalgia, and the way that I was feeling. One of the most irritating symptoms, I would say, would be fatigue, because you're just so tired, like bone crushing. There's no explanation to describe how tired you can become, and it would be just a simple activity could leave you wiped out for 2 or 3 days. I asked myself, why would I be so tired? Where does my body get the energy from? And that was the key question. And I answered myself and told myself, your mitochondria is where you get your energy from. I thought, what if I could place the different components that belong in the mitochondria in my body in the form of food or supplements? What would happen? So I went to do some research on the electron transport chain, and I will link that blog post below. And I've realized that there are a lot of the components of the electron transport chain that are available as supplements. I continued to do some research on each of those supplements, and I decided which one I would like to try first. For me, I decided to go with CoQ10 and Magnesium because I really needed to sleep, and the CoQ10 had a lot of great reviews. It was very popular and it was well tolerated. I had very little funds, very little money, and I decided I need to try to get the cheapest one for the best price, but still good quality. And I stumbled across the Doctor's Best 3-in-1, and I will put a picture right here over my face. I decided to get that because it had CoQ10 and Magnesium. I wasn't really sure what L-Carnitine was, so I decided to do some research on that as well, and I realized that it could be helpful for me because it will shuttle the acetyl groups into the mitochondria. Now, the acetyl groups were formed by the fats that we eat. That's why they tell us to eat good fats, so we can produce these acetyl groups. The L-carnitine will shuttle the acetyl group into the mitochondria because there is no other way for that to happen. All this information will be found in the blog post that I link below. So I decided to give this a go. And I remember clearly the day that my shipment arrived. I had been feeling very poorly, and I had taken some time off of my lab duties to try to take care of myself. And that morning I laid in the couch and I said, like, I cannot even move. It was the pain, it was the fatigue, and a lot of the sleeplessness had been managed with the bone broth, but there was still a little more to go. And when the package arrived, I was so excited, and I started taking them immediately. That night, I did not need bone broth to help me fall asleep after just the first day of treatment. And in the coming weeks, I noticed that I was improving so much. And then I got to a plateau where I was like, maybe like 75%. And I thought there must be something more that I can take. And I went back to the list of supplements that I had written down to see again what exactly they were and what were their functions in the electron transport chain. And then I came across one that I had written down, D-Ribose. Ribose, the adenine, and the 3-phosphate groups form ATP. This formation of ATP is a rate-limiting step in energy production. And I thought to myself, maybe this is the key. I decided to add the D-Ribose to my supplements. I found some very good information in a lot of the scientific papers that I read, and I will link some of those below. I also found very helpful some videos by Dr. Sinatra, and it was like a confirmation for me because he was actually speaking on taking CoQ10, magnesium, carnitine, and D-Ribose, but he is recommending this for heart patients, not those that suffer from fibromyalgia. But I thought it couldn't hurt, right? So I went ahead and I ordered the D-Ribose, and it was an easy supplement to take. And I will link the blog posts in regarding to D-Ribose in the description as well. In the first week that I took it, I didn't really notice anything significant. I decided to continue taking it, and after about 3 weeks, I started to improve. So now my pain is reduced because of the magnesium and the bone broth. My brain fog is also reduced, but not so much. That was the only annoying thing, that I was still having a lot of brain fog. My dyspepsia, joint pain, and then my fatigue was slowly being lifted, and I could feel the D-Ribose like working in my body. It was like a clean burning energy, not jittery like coffee does. So I tried to look more into getting rid of the brain fog, and I started looking into different nootropics, and I found that while carnitine was good for my condition, Acetyl-L-Carnitine was even better. So I decided to, instead of getting the 3-in-1, I decided to split all these into its own supplement. So I got CoQ10 on its own, magnesium on its own, and Acetyl-L-Carnitine on its own, and D-Ribose. So I had these 4. The first day I took the Acetyl-L-Carnitine, I was alert, awake, and my brain function was next level. I could remember, I can think, I can recall. It was amazing. And I feel like I was on the road to getting my life back. It's up from here. That's how I felt. It's only up from here. I went a few months, maybe 2 months like this, and I started to run a fever, like a low-grade fever. I started to realize that I was running a low-grade fever. I still had allodynia every now and again, but it wasn't as intense and severe as it was before, I started doing some research on anti-inflammatory foods, and that's when I came across ginger, turmeric, and cinnamon. And the easiest way to make this is to make some golden milk, and I will put that below, and all the blog posts that are related to cinnamon, ginger, and turmeric. It was during the time of the peak of the pandemic. It was difficult for me to get into buildings, get on trains and things like that, because I couldn't convince anybody that I wasn't having a fever. I went back to my general physician and I let her know what I was doing, and I let her know how it had affected me so far, and I let her know where I came up with this idea, and I showed her all the papers that I had read. So she took the papers from me and she went over them, and then she's like, okay, I know this is working for you so far, but let's adjust some of these doses. After our meeting, we decided to go with 30 milligrams of CoQ10 per day, 250 of Acetyl-L-Carnitine per day, 200 milligrams of magnesium per day, 100 more if needed, and 10 grams of D-Ribose per day. She let me go for about 2 weeks, and then I came back to tell her how I was doing and if this was working for me. I told her yes, it was, and then she did some blood work, and for the first time, it didn't show that I was having an inflammation. So she said, okay, I'll let you go now and stay on these doses, and if anything is wrong, you come back, but make sure you're back for your yearly checkup. And so that's where that was left off. I took control of the inflammation that was happening in my body, but the only thing that was still a little bit worrisome was the allodynia. I joined different groups online and in Facebook and all the different social media groups that I could join, and I noticed that this really was a problem. Fibromyalgia, rash, or allodynia. I will link that below as well. Nobody really gave a direct answer to the question of how to get rid of it. Some people just say drink some lemon juice. But then I started to keep a food diary, and I would write down what I ate and then how it affected me. And I noticed that every time I ate something sweet, allodynia. So I cut out sugar out of my diet. And then I started incorporating different types of sugar slowly. So I would eat some fruit and see what happens, like the sweeter fruits like grapes, and see if I would get allodynia. No. I would eat sweetbreads and cakes and to see if that would cause the allodynia. A little. But when I drank coffee and juices that was made with sugar, I had allodynia. I didn't really understand why the cakes and the sweetbreads wouldn't react the same way as the juices. So then I said, okay, so no more sugar, brown or white sugar. I separated the two and I tried what would happen if I had brown sugar. Nothing. I was fine. What would happen if I had white sugar? Full-blown allodynia. So I cut white sugar and the sweet cakes and breads out of my diet as much as I can. So that's how I took control of that. So these months went on, and then I started getting really anxious and full of anxiety about my manuscript, that I talk about in my Insomniac Nights. We'll link that above. And I started losing a lot of sleep, and it was really affecting me because every time I lose sleep, I would go having a flare. I went back online to do more research about sleep, and that's when I found out about glycine. It was already present in bone broth, but because I had stopped taking bone broth so frequently, maybe this was the reason that I was starting to lose sleep. It was starting to get cumbersome to prepare the bone broth all the time, so I just bought beef gelatin and I let it replace it, and it was fine. I also bought some glycine, and I started taking this, just 1 gram of glycine at night, along with 100 or 150 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, and I fall asleep within 1 hour. sometimes in the morning when I wake up and I'm very anxious to come here because, you know, of maybe I'm having a meeting or I'm giving a presentation or something along those lines, I would take 100 milligrams of theanine to calm me down. And it does work, but I only do that on an as needed basis. That was how I started to get out of my fibro slump, I will call it, and my frequent flare-ups. I would say about 85% of my symptoms are gone, and I still have a lot of pain, you know, but not as severe as before, but it's still burdensome. And I think a lot of that has to do with the stress that my body is feeling right now and the way I am internalizing it. And every now and again when I can't take it anymore, I would go see my therapist and she would make you feel better, but my situation will change, you know. So I'm interested to see like what would happen after my paper was published and I get to graduate and have a career, you know, that what it would be like, you know, to have more income and less stress. That is a thing. Yeah. So those are the supplements that I am taking right now, and I will do videos in the future on each of those and the mechanism on how they work and why they're good for fibromyalgia. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you would like to see more of these videos, please go ahead and subscribe. And however you got here, thank you for stopping by and thank you for staying. And until I see you again, live your best life. Bye.